and all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the people who are joining us today from different parts of the world. We are about to begin our next session on the topic bug bounty hunting and reconnaissance. We are very pleased to host Mr. Ahmad Halabi in the RedTeam Security Summit 2021. Mr. Ahmad Halabi is a cybersecurity specialist, hacker, and founder of CyberSec. He has discovered over 2,000 vulnerabilities in over 200 companies. The 200 plus companies and the programs include the US Department of Defense, Pentagon, DRPA, HackerOne, Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Apple, Telegram, and Bitcenter. He also has CES, ESSA, HFI, NTCUMA, NPPW certified, and listed among the top 50 hackers of all time worldwide. We are thankful for the will and interest of Mr. Ahmad Halabi shown to the RedTeam Security Summit 2021. I welcome you all and sir to this session. Sir, now you can take over the session. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to my talk. First of all, thank you, Emily, for the introduction. Today's session will be about reconnaissance and bug bounty. I think no need to introduce myself since Miss Emily introduced me. So we're gonna talk about reconnaissance concepts, type of reconnaissance. We're gonna go in depth about reconnaissance, then how to automate reconnaissance. So the session is also about bug bounty, but it's more about focus on reconnaissance because here I will be focused on how to find vulnerabilities, how to discover weaknesses. Introducing reconnaissance. What is reconnaissance? It's simply like a technique that allows an attacker to discover vulnerabilities or to find information in systems. So it's like a preparation phase for hacking. It's the first step that hackers do in order to find vulnerabilities. It's also like a process of collecting as much information as possible about the target, from identifying like system information, network information, and so on. There are two types of reconnaissance. So some are saying that the voice is not clear. Can you please assist? Okay. So it's clear. There are two types of reconnaissance. We have passive and active. The difference between passive and active, passive is that it doesn't require like direct interaction with the target. So you collect information through like open source intelligences and other resources. While active reconnaissance, you are required to interact with the target, maybe intercepting requests or going physically to the target place if it's bank or organization, for example. So why hackers do reconnaissance? First of all, because they want to know the security posture. They want to discover, like external posture and no information about the target. Also, they want to reduce the focus area. So if you knew where to focus exactly, then you will be able to find more vulnerabilities and know where to search. So they try to find as much as possible IP addresses related to the target company, domain names, systems, and so on. Also, as we said, to identify vulnerabilities. In order to find vulnerabilities, you have to look and search for them. And whenever you like reduce the attack area, you will be able to find more. Then in the last, they draw the network map, which means that you draw everything you collected from the target and you are able to go and like look and exploit vulnerabilities. So this is also additional to the objective of reconnaissance. It's like an example, what information you can identify. We see that from domain name to system architecture uh, to organizations information about employees, organizations, company details, location, and so on. Okay, what is bug bounty? Bug bounty in general is like finding vulnerability in a target in a company, and then you report it uh, ethically. You go to the company website or to like something platforms like HackerOne, BuggyCrowd, and then you tell them, hey, I found a vulnerability, and this is the details, and then they acknowledge you, and as well they pay you for bounty, or they put you on Hall of Fame, or they give you swags. Okay, how we can use reconnaissance to find vulnerabilities and do bug bounties. Uh, I will go about techniques of reconnaissance, then I will go about reports that I discovered using these techniques. First technique is called search engines. Search engines is a simple technique, is the first thing that we do when approaching a target. So whenever we came across a target, we start searching for it on Google, Bing, Yahoo, all search engines. We search for any public information related to the target, system information, personal information. For example, we register accounts on maybe Google platforms related to the target company, and we try to explore employee groups and so on. Even we use like then advanced Google searching. Advanced Google searching like Google Dorks and advanced Google hacking databases, which means that we search for a specific maybe file or specific keyword or specific like endpoint inside the target company website related to it. So we want to discover more accurate information. And why we do that? Because we need to find vulnerabilities. And for vulnerabilities, we need to like search for them and go accuracy for them. Uh, Google Dorks use query string and Google operators. Okay, so first proof of concept related to Google Dorks and Google like searching in general is a vulnerability that I found in a target company that I was able maybe to access its internal admin page through a, a secret client ID exposure when I searched in Google Dorks. So I came across a subdomain. You can see the subdomain, for example, accounts.redacted.com /redacted/login. So I noticed an error saying no client ID found. If we go back, you can see inside the image, no client ID found in the response. So I thought that this is like weird response. Then I predicted that there should be a parameter called client ID or client underscore ID, because like this error like proves that. So what I did is simply I used Google Dork technique that I talked about before, which is site accounts.redacted.com in URL client ID. What I'm doing now here is I'm telling the Google Dork to search inside this site for any parameter inside the URL that called client ID. And you can see inside the image in the third line, third search query, there is a valid URL having client ID parameter with a valid value. Simply I accessed the value and I was able to log in inside the company without authentication. So this key is like authentication key that allows you to log in directly. This led me to successful internal access to the management panel. Okay, third technique will be Wayback Machine. What is Wayback Machine? It's like a machine that allows you to go back in time. So simply you go back in history. You see how the website was maybe in 2 years and 3 years ago. Why this is useful? because maybe the target company posted some useful information or some private information maybe 1 month ago, and then they deleted them. But still they are saved in the Wayback Machine, because a lot of like companies store maybe by mistake some useful information inside their website in a hidden directory and so on, and then they deleted them, but they are still stored in these platforms like Wayback and also in cache. So then you can catch them and they will be valuable for the hackers. You remember the first bug we talked about? It's also related to client ID. So after they fixed the vulnerability, I was able to find a bypass. But this time the bypass was with the help of Wayback Machine. So what I did is that I used the Wayback Machine technique. I tried to do reconnaissance to find the client ID values, but this time with Wayback Machine. So we have on GitHub a tool called Wayback URLs. Wayback URLs, what it does is that it fetches all the URLs related to the target website from Wayback Machine. So it helps you just to fast your reconnaissance. So I typed simply echo accounts.redtech.com pipeline Wayback URLs pipeline grep client ID. What this command does is simply it sends this URL to Wayback Machine in order to fetch all valid URLs related to it. Then it search for any URL that has client ID parameter, and it fetched me records. It fetched me records for this subdomain with valid also client ID values, more than one. In Google search, I just identified one valid client ID, but here I identified around maybe 6 valid client IDs. Also reported the vulnerability and was accepted. Someone asking, the slides will be shared. I don't know yet, but we can discuss later. Fourth method will be open source intelligence. One of the most and greatest techniques in order to find vulnerabilities. Search engines allows you to search for wide information about servers like webcams, routers, servers, and so on. Everything connected to the internet. Search engines will be like Census, Shodan, ZoomEye, and Security Trails. Okay, we will talk about it later in a vulnerability that I reported. Company search. Also, it's important when you are approaching a target on HackerOne, BuggyCrowd, doing bug bounty or penetration testing inside the company. So it's important to understand the company, what it does, understand the employees inside the company. So you don't just search for vulnerabilities. You also search for any details about employees. Maybe you can exploit an internal admin login page if you via a password related to one of the employees, maybe engineering employees or something. So what I usually do is that I go to LinkedIn, I search for all employees related to the target company. I search for their social life, maybe collect as much as keywords about them and then generate them in a word list for passwords. Then using this word list, I brute force the public login pages of the company, because employees will surely put passwords related to them or combined with the company. So this is very helpful and very useful to find to look for information inside the company profiles. Github Leaks, which is the sixth method. GitHub is very valuable resource for hackers in order to find useful information like source code, also employees, you can search for employees inside GitHub as well. You can find secrets, credentials, IP addresses, subdomains, and much more. Some companies by mistake they upload to their GitHub repository, upload maybe secret information, maybe credentials, username, password by mistake, and before they realize that mistake, you will catch the vulnerability and report it and get bounty. This is vulnerability by one of my friends, Jordan Hacker. He simply found leaked client ID and secret credentials in Google repository. So he was able to access employee login panel through these credentials. So like if you see, even in big companies like Google, you will find these issues. Also, there is another Jordan hacker who was able to discover GitHub token leaked, also in public repository related to Snapchat, and they awarded him $15,000. So you notice that these mistakes are like fatal mistakes because this is the token, if you can see it. So because from one leaked token you are able to access into the internal company, which is very critical. Seventh method simply is open ports and banner grabbing. Okay, whenever you are approaching a target, it's important to check all the system open ports in order to identify like softwares and services running behind these open ports. Maybe you will find SSH open port that will be maybe vulnerable to an old version, or can be brute forced and the password is easy, also depending on the previous reconnaissance. Maybe you will find like CVE, valid CVE. So it's very important. Fourth vulnerability we're gonna talk about today is also a bug that I discovered related to this port scanning issue. I found an open SSH and then missing rate limit protection on brute forcing SSH. Then I found a valid password. I got remote code execution inside the company server. So simply I pinged the target URL to get the IP address. Then I did port scan. I found SSH on port 2222. If you are familiar with SSH, you will notice that it's like normal port is 22, but here the company changed the port just to avoid being suspicious and so on. So I found this open port. I tried brute forcing using Hydra. Hydra is a tool that allows you to brute force. So I grabbed a word list, and also the word list, the password word list is not normal password word list. What I did first is I went to GitHub for this company. I searched for any keyword that could be possible. It will be a valid password. Also, I went to the LinkedIn company profile. I searched for for employees inside this company, and I generated a word list using tool called Cewl, C-E-W-L. So what tool does is that it scraps the websites of the target companies and generate keywords of possible passwords. I used all of them in a file called pwd.txt and brute forced the password and was able to access the server, which led to remote code execution. Okay, eighth method is JavaScript analysis. JavaScript is very important if you want to dig deep inside the target and find hidden information, leaked information, or as well like mapping each request and predicting what will be, for example, the API key, the password, and so on, and what will be like hidden endpoints and so on. These are proofs of valid reports due to leaked information inside JavaScripts. For example, this person found Postgre database credentials inside a JavaScript file. The other one found a token inside a JavaScript file. Okay. Ninth method, dynamic analysis. Dynamic analysis simply is interacting with the target by maybe analyzing its traffic, its requests, and also, like as we did before, port scanning and banner grabbing. It's also included inside the dynamic analysis. Okay, there are some tools like Burp Suite, Proxy, and so on. Simply also examining HTML source code, because you will sometimes find also inside comments you will find helpful information, maybe endpoint and so on. Also, you may find employee names, email addresses, and like some useful information related to this using dynamic analysis. Content discovery, number 10. Okay, content discovery is like combination between a brute force and fuzzing. It can be very helpful in finding hidden subdomains, hidden directories, hidden files, and hidden parameters. In the end, I will go inside this public list and answer any question if we have time. Okay. Okay. What is fuzzing? It's simply a technique to put like random characters, random data inside the inputs and inside parameters, and monitor for any exceptions, for any errors, for any crashes that the program will do. This is very important if you are testing against some vulnerabilities, maybe like XSS, SQL injection, SSRF, and some like just like fatal vulnerabilities that do exceptions and leak information. Also, this is important if you are testing against potential memory leaks. While brute force is simply putting like a combination of passwords or phrases or word list inside the input and the brute forcing to get a successful login attempt or to get a valid domain. Also, fifth vulnerability I discovered using brute force technique. Secret key exposure in API config directory. This vulnerability I found it in February 5, and I was awarded $750. You can see reconnaissance take time, but at the same time, even if it's take time, it's worth it because you will find high critical impact. So simply, I came across a target. I found an API directory, which is like a blank page. What I did is that I brute forced /API, and then I found a directory called config. So I brute forced API, I found config config had something called login URL secret key, which is a parameter, you see, and it has value. The value is something like this. Luckily, this value was a password. Then later on, I used it in another place, and I was able to go inside. Sixth vulnerability, RCE, remote access. Remote code execution inside via internal access to admin database management. Also, by brute force, I found this website /admin. /admin gave me 403 forbidden. Whenever you see 403 forbidden, which means that there is content behind this that the company don't want you to see. So what you do is simply either try to bypass this 403 forbidden by manipulating requests and responses, or try to brute force behind it. This is a critical vulnerability. I was paid $2,000 for it because it's RCE. So what I did is simply I tried the brute force the main website, I found /admin. /admin was 403, access denied. Brute forcing /admin, I found a file called adminer.php. Also, there is username password. There is possibility to be able to access internally. Either you can here brute force username password, which is the method that I don't prefer in first step. So first try to go inside Google search, Google Dorks, open source intelligences, these platforms to find usernames password. If you didn't find something useful, then you can brute force. So what I did is that it took me maybe 2 hours searching in the internet, and then I found default admin login credentials. The username was Homestead, the password was secret. Logged in, accessed the admin panel. There was like communication for internal database, and through it I got RCE. This is a penetration testing project that I did during my work as a penetration tester. I used these 4 methods. This is like a summary and like a proof about how to combine these techniques of reconnaissance in order to find the very critical information and critical vulnerability. So what I used, simply static analysis, port scanning, open source intelligences, and content discovery. Okay, so simply a company asked me to test their APK application. They told me this is the APK file we need from you to identify a very critical vulnerability just through this APK file. They told me don't bother yourself to perform dynamic analysis because the application is like secure and there are encryptions and so on. So it's hard to bypass SSL and so on. So I thought it's better to start with a static analysis. First thing to do when you see APK file, decompile, reverse engineer the file. So first step that I did is decompiling the file simply. But then I struggled with JavaScript files inside this application. They were encrypted. So using some techniques and some methods, I was able to decrypt JavaScript files. Then using static analysis technique in Reconnaissance, I performed like analyzing these JavaScript files. And after some analysis, you can see in the end, I was able to find an IP address and port 8006/files, which is a directory. So this is first step. Very useful information. We found a new IP address. We don't know what is it. Continuing, doing the second reconnaissance step, which is port scanning. I started scanning this IP address, but the problem is that the port scan took a lot of time. It took maybe 3 hours and didn't finish. So I thought I have to find another method related to port scan, which is open source intelligences. Because in open source intelligences, you can also find open ports and so on. So simply what I did, I went to Census. It's like Shodan, and it's also very powerful. I recommend using it besides Shodan. I found an open port, which is 8100. And if you can see in the end, sign in GitLab, HTML title is saying, and the status is 200 OK, which is very great. So what I did is simply, I accessed the website and found that, yes, it's running GitLab. You can notice here there is a register sign. Register sign was active and I was able to register. But the problem, registration will be with downgraded normal user, not privileged high user. So you will not be an admin, and thus you cannot see any project. But after I registered, I found an endpoint called /API/v4/users. This endpoint allows you to view the details of all users inside GitLab. And I found the administrator user details. The most important thing was here the username. I found the username. So through username, we can go back and put username in the username input, which is root, brute force the password, and luckily there was like weak rate limit protection. I was able to bypass it. After brute forcing the password, I was able to access GitLab using admin credentials and view the projects. You can see all uh, here, explore projects, all, and I hide the projects because they are surely confidential information. And you can see these titles of the projects. So I was able to access the whole GitLab and download the whole projects of the target company, which are private projects, just through an APK file by analyzing it, finding an IP address. How to automate reconnaissance? It's very important that we know it's best to automate. Why? Because doing manual reconnaissance will require a lot of time. Maybe you will spend days, maybe weeks, maybe months trying to reconnaissance, especially if you are hacking on a quite big target like Google, for example, Yahoo, and so on. You will not be able to find a lot of useful information in manual search because it will take time. So simply reconnaissance save time, provide more results in short time, and save hackers doing a lot of manual stuff. Example of automation that I did, for example, for subdomain enumeration, for finding a lot of subdomain. Simply, I wrote a tool called subdomain automation.sh. What this tool does is it launches multiple tools for subdomain enumeration. For example, you can see here, I launched Sublister, which is a tool for subdomain enumeration. Then I launched a tool called Asset Finder, also a tool for subdomain enumeration. Then I launched Amass in passive mode and active brute force mode. So I have launched the four resources to collect me subdomains. In the end, I removed any duplicates. Then I checked for live domains. What I mean by live domains are the domains that resolve. For example, that gave 80 and 443 response, which are HTTP and HTTPS. Then I don't just rely on tools. I use my own word list in order to brute force subdomains. Maybe this tool will not detect maybe new subdomains or hidden subdomains, so it's better to brute force them. And in these techniques, I found the new subdomains multiple times and was able to find vulnerabilities in these subdomains. Okay, then I check for subdomains. For example, if I found admin.website.com, I don't stop here. I also go to brute force the subdomain, to brute force admin.website.com. Maybe I will find staging.admin.website.com, or maybe I will find internal.admin.website.com. So I also tend to brute force the subdomains. Whenever I find subdomain, I also brute force. This takes very large time, but it's worth it. If you find one subdomain with critical vulnerability, you will recover the whole time that you lost. Also remove duplicates. Then I check for subdomain takeover. So see that all this subdomain enumeration method is automated. For example, it may takes for me it takes around 1 week, but it's not important if it takes 1 week and gave accurate results. So simply I put it on a VPS server, I keep it running, and once it's finished, it will notify me and I will check the results. This is the map, the roadmap. I will share this, don't worry. I will share it in the new year. In the beginning of January, I will write an article about it and share the whole roadmap. So this is a roadmap that I created. It's not new. It's collected from the public internet. So just what I did is that I gathered all the information and put them together. So this roadmap helped me to find vulnerabilities through reconnaissance. It is a reconnaissance roadmap. It's called Advanced Recon and Web Application Discovery. A quick talk about this. So whenever we have a domain or target in bug bounty or in penetration testing, whenever you want to approach a domain, first thing we do is that we search for any root seeds related to this domain. So we search for who is information, DNS information, and acquisitions. Who is information can give us valuable information about who purchased this domain. For example, email addresses, names, locations, expiry date, and so on. Also, DNSs, you can look for CNAMEs, like something related to spoofing issues and so on. Acquisitions, for example, if you know Google bug bounty platform, they accept vulnerabilities that are reported to the companies that are acquired by Google. What does this mean? For example, Google buy company named X, for example. So even if you find vulnerabilities inside the X company, Google will accept the vulnerability and award you. So it's important to increase the attack posture by knowing the acquisitions that the company has, which is very important. This will give you like 1,000 chances to find more vulnerabilities. Then I go through subdomain enumeration in active and passive. Also, this needs to be updated. It's not the last version. So I will also update it after that. We collect the subdomains, we sort them, we send subdomains for subdomain takeover check, we send the subdomains for port scan, identify services running behind them. We check for resolving subdomains. Then the resolving subdomains, we go them through GitHub, try content discovery by brute forcing, fuzzing. We can also automate GitHub. What we can do by automating GitHub is that we can create something called monitor. We monitor a target company like Google, Facebook on GitHub. So we write a script, launch it on a server. We tell the script whenever you see important or any new GitHub information added to the GitHub repository inside, for example, Facebook repository, simply notify us. And also we can optimize the search by telling the script, for example, search for any keywords related to password, email, secret, API, and so on. And whenever you find the new information added to Google repository, send us maybe via email, maybe via Slack, maybe just notification. It's very important, automating GitHub. Also, what we can do, simply check for subdomains and then gather all subdomains and check for common CVEs and common known vulnerabilities using a tool, very useful tool called the Nuclei. Then automating Wayback URLs, doing spidering, which is very important. Through Wayback Machine, you can extract any extension you want. Maybe .php, maybe .aspx, maybe .txt, maybe .pdf. They maybe have some useful information in PDF and they forgot to remove the file. Look for patterns. What patterns means is that, for example, you can send the target subdomains to Wayback Machine and tell the Wayback to give you just the URLs that has parameter, that has endpoint, for example, URL, or that has endpoint API, or that has endpoints related to SSRF. So then you can scan for SSRF vulnerabilities or XSS, and it is very useful. Then in the end, we extract JavaScript files. Through JavaScript files, we do same techniques. We search for credentials, we search for new endpoints, we search for new subdomains, and new directories, and so on. So this is like the application structure that I did, because I did this whole methodology, this whole roadmap, I did it in a software called ARWAD. So this is the structure. Simply, we have PC, which is the clients here, the users that use it, and this is my server that does all the work. So simply, you launch program.exe. You tell them, for example, search for google.com. Like information went to the server and everything is started. There is a script called arwad.sh that will launch everything inside here and then give you the results stored in a directory called, for example, Google, and with the date whenever you launch the attack. This is like a blueprint about the program that I did, because this program I did it like for a work purpose uh, and for a presentation project. So simply I wrote a program that does all the things that we discussed in the roadmap. For example, you can see, like, if you enter my website and click enumerate, it will get your results. So this is just blueprint. Either you can tell him I need just subdomains, I need acquisitions, I need subdomain takeover, uh, or you can put I need all, and it will get you all information. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much. And I will write about this automation reconnaissance soon, as well as I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really a wonderful session. We really had a great time listening to your systematic work. We are really grateful for your presence here at RedTeam Cybersecurity 2021. Now we have reached the end of this session. If anybody is having any questions, please feel to ask in the Q&A box in the right section of the screen. And I would also like to thank each one of you for your active participation in the event, and Mr. Ahmad Halabi himself for spending this valuable time with us. Thank you, sir. Now we are going to enter the next session on exploring client-side attacks by Mr. Savan Gadia. Before moving on, I would also like to give a shout out to our community partners: Advisory Village, Coffee with Red Team, ASRG, Cyberspace Foundation, Shell, Computer Society of India, Cyberfrat, DEFCON, OWASP, Wix India, Infosec Diversity, Infosys Diversity, and our media partners, Blueprint and Security. Our event organizer, Red Team Hacker Academy and Red Team Cybersecurity Labs. Our supporting partners: CAPIT, Cyberroom Calicut, Government Cyberpark Kozhikode, GTech, and Payato. And last, our tech partners, Hack the Box. Thank you all. We'll be automatically moving to the next section. In the meanwhile, there are different booths of Red Team Hacker Academy, Red Team Cybersecurity Labs, Hack the Box, and Payato available in the left side of the screen. You can explore them too. Till the next session. Thank you.